We are now at the end of the French 8 p.m. turn, and not a lot happened. They've postured a lot. They've got in position for the final turn, which will be the 9 p.m. turn. I did give some consideration to just stopping the battle because it's pretty unlikely that the French could do anything that would win. We've already established that they can't reach a position to hold the Brussels road up here. Can't get through. And the possibility, so therefore the possibility of them exhausting, it would have to be two Allied divisions, was explored. Not a lot of hope for that, but it was decided that what the heck, the battle's raging, let's carry on for a few more turns to see what happens. So basically, without any terribly complex design, the idea was just to sort of attack wherever possible. And of course, this means for exhausted divisions, it means that the only kind of attack that can be done is to persuade some brigades to move up to musket range and fire on the enemy. Right, so what happened down here over on the French left was this brigade was withdrawn away from the enemy. They're an exhausted division, so they can't attack the enemy. All they can do is block, basically. This then gave us room to have Kellermann's corps, the three brigades of Kellermann's corps, which arrived later in the battle, have now moved forward, and they're all in position. They're within 400 yards and ready to be able to charge the enemy. They'll be charging the enemy in the next hour, in the next turn, just to see what kind of result we can get. See if they cause any damage. Who knows? We also moved up. They also moved up the horse artillery here. It was too congested to get the horse artillery through there, so that's still there. Division commanders have moved forward, of course. Basically here we've got Bachelot's division is keeping itself out of musket range of the enemy so that it doesn't lose that extra strength point and become another exhausted French division, which would certainly be a nail in the coffin. I'm sure that's something that the Allies might want to explore. We shall see. Down here, we had the first rallying of the game took place. We had Ney rally this unit which was routed here, and we had Riel rallied this unit here, and then one routed unit. There are only so many army and corps commanders, so this routed unit here carried on routing down to here. These units, which belong to Prince Jerome, were merely disordered. They recovered from disorder and moved themselves into musket range of the horse battery over here. There's Jerome still there. Okay. Moving along, we then had this unit here remained in place because it can't attack the enemy. It's an exhausted division, but it could use musket fire onto this unit here, which belongs to Brunswick's division, in the hope of exhausting that. And then over here, as you can probably tell, we had the Kellermann's heavy cavalry charged the Brunswick Hussars, which were light cavalry, and well, we don't see them there anymore, so we can probably figure out what happened there. We'll get back to that. Morale tests were done. There were no morale surprises, I don't think. Nothing particularly unusual happened there, no. So really, going back to the combat, as we might imagine, there was basically no effect down here. Everybody here is out of musket range. And then we come down here. These chaps fired on them, very little effect there. Fire exchanged here, little or no effect there. And then we had the one exciting moment, which was we finally had a cavalry on cavalry clash. I believe it's the first of the battle. So we had Kellerman's heavies charging Brunswick's lights, and they both passed their morale tests. And it just turned out that the heavies inflicted 2 casualties and the lights inflicted none. So the lights were massacred. The slaughter was unspeakable. And as a result, that's increased the size of the dent in Brunswick's division. The heavies, one might have considered cavalry breakthrough, but that would, because they have to, even if they eliminate their enemy, they have to go straight forward. So they would have gone sort of down in this direction. And these are core troops. They don't contribute to any kind of a victory. So it was decided, no, let's stay where we are, turn in place and be ready, if they're still around, to charge them next turn, just to go absolutely nuts and charge everything, as it were, and see how much damage we can cause. Now, I'm just going to check one thing. Yes, I was just checking on the Duke of Brunswick's division, and his corps, I should say. Well, it's his division, which is in his corps. They are 2 points, they're 2 strength points away from division exhaustion. So it is just possible that the French, depending on what the Allies do, of course, in their turn, they might withdraw like crazy so as to stop the possibility of another division becoming exhausted. But were it the case that the French managed to exhaust Brunswick's corps/division, then that would mean, of course, that both the French and the Allies had 2 exhausted divisions. But the problem is that on top of that, the French have an exhausted cavalry division, which is worth half a victory point in this scenario. And so it would still mean that the French would lose. And of course, remember, under the scenario rules, there are no ties. So even if it was tied, the Allies would win. So not looking good for a French victory. And again, I'm definitely at this point teetering on whether or not to even continue playing out the rest of the engagement, because it can only go one way basically at the moment. But it's always interesting to see what might happen. So that's the end of the French 8 p.m. turn. And it's now a day or so later. That's one of the advantages, of course, of solo wargaming. You can take as long as you like, and I've given this some thought, and I've basically decided that there is no point in continuing the battle, because it's the Allies' 8 p.m. turn now, and essentially all they have to do is withdraw some forces slightly, and it will mean that it will be impossible for the French to cause the exhaustion of another division. Essentially, what would have to happen is their forces over here can simply withdraw away from the cavalry, which, you remember, the cavalry moved so that it was within 400 yards of the enemy so that they could be charged next turn. Remember, that's a special scenario rule because of these standing crops. I remember reading that I think it was the rye in some places was as much as 7 feet high. It was recorded by some of the combatants. So this is an unusual situation. Of course, normally that wouldn't be the case in a volley and bayonet battle, but so the French have had, in this case it is, so the French have had to move up, discover, as it were, what it is they were about to charge next turn, stop there. So therefore, if the enemy moves away and are now beyond 400 yards of the French can't charge them next turn. So all that would have to happen here was that these Allied forces would withdraw, so can't do anything to them, can't do anything to affect that division. And the division that is more damaged is Brunswick's corps. And the thing is here, of course, we've got the heavies here, which would love to be able to charge them next turn, but all they have to do is move away. They could move as far as here. Sorry, they could move as far as there in one turn. And these forces could also move away. These forces could move away. And so you'd have a situation where, and also basically all the allies could move so that they could not be fired upon. They couldn't be charged by the French. And they could still leave forces here, or they could even withdraw some forces to here so that they could block the Brussels road, which would mean that the French would also not be able to take that point. So there is no way, excuse me, there is no way that the French can, it's probably true that there's no way that the French can even cause any more casualties at all on the Allies if the Allies withdraw. So that means that there's little point in playing on. Well, no, there isn't. I would have to make the Allied commander suddenly change his battle plan and stand and defend, and then we would see more casualties. But that is not the sticking with the scenario's design. And so, but therefore, it's the decision has not been arrived at lightly, and the decision has been made to bring the battle to a close. And yes, of course, not surprisingly, I already have another battle in mind, which I hope to report soon. In summary, as far as this battle is concerned, it's been very, very interesting. It has been a hard proposition, I've thought, for the French. I mean, of course, one can fight it again and see what happens. And I feel moved now to do some research on the web to see when people have played it out, what sort of results they've experienced. Of course, some of it comes down to the roll of the dice. Obviously, it is a game after all. But no, it's been very interesting, very challenging, and well, essentially, a good time was had by all, which in this case means me. So with that, I will leave you and see you next time on the battlefield.